All right, let's get started. Here we go. Thank you all for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Atlanta. Good morning, Southeast. Good morning, East Coast and West Coast and the Middle Coast and wherever you are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making the Daily Huddle an opportunity for you to start your day powerfully. We appreciate you profound. Those of you that join us on Facebook Live and those of you who are right here in the live Zoom studio of Daily Huddle. Molly, so beautiful to see your face. Thomas, Mark, Cece, and those of you who join us, thank you for being here. Today we have a phenomenal conversation, so let's get us started. And as always, there is a practice. People ask me, Giovanni, why do you say the same thing every morning? Because emotional intelligence is not a mountain with that you reach the top. Emotional intelligence is a mountain with no top. It's a practice that you do every day. There's no place to get to. It's a practice. So, Molly, how are you, Molly? Good morning.
Good morning, Gio. I'm exactly how I say I am, and that is fantastic.
I love it. Thank you, Molly. Thomas, where are you?
I am here.
Exactly where you need to be. There's no other way to, no other place to be. Thank you, Thomas. Mark Ham, what time is it?
Gio, let me check my Rolex. It's right now.
It's a Rolex or a Disney watch. It's going to say the same thing right now. That's the only time that matters. Saurel, we're ready for you. Thank you for being here. Saurel, America's executive coach, the co-host of Daily Huddle, the founder of Daily Huddle, founder of exeQfit, and someone who manages a multi-million-dollar company. But anyway, how busy he is, it doesn't matter. He's here every morning from Monday to Friday, giving us an opportunity to think of life a little bit different, to think about your life a little bit different. And he does this so generously. Saurel, good morning. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning, Giovanni. Thank you for creating me the way you do right here, right now. I acknowledge you as America's and the #1 transformational leadership coach. And this morning's conversation is anchored in a question that Giovanni and I, we spent, 45 minutes creating one question. And the question is, how do you overcome the negative emotions that are impacting your business? So I woke up this morning facing the fact that A, I have the Daily Huddle. B, I've got the rest of the day client meetings. C, I've got an entire weekend from Friday morning through the end of Sunday at 6 p.m. all booked. And I am complaining. You can guess what I'm complaining about, right? I woke up this morning and it was right there in my face. I don't have enough time. And I'm looking and listening to myself complaining, and I start to get that I actually have an emotional investment to that complaint.
Saurel, did you create the question today? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, good.
The question is, how do you overcome the negative emotions that are impacting your business? And the way you start to get to that is by catching yourself complaining. So I got up this morning and I'm complaining. I don't have enough time. And then I start to look, given the conversation that you and I were having yesterday, that I have an emotional investment in that complaint. And that emotional investment shows up for me as frustration, impatience. And I look further and I go, well, I'm not acting as if I'm frustrated. There's something else there. I look and I see that I have an interpretation of the frustration. I have an interpretation of the circumstances. And for me, Giovanni, and everyone, it lives like this. Oh my God, I am failing. That's the interpretation. So it's not like I have X, Y, Z to do, and I have X amount of time. It is, I'm failing. And all of a sudden, instead of being in action in my business, doing what I need to do to move the business forward, I'm in action now, doing what I need to do to fix myself or fix the situation so that I am not failing. So get on the edge of your seats and get this. In life, as a human being, you and me, you and I don't relate to my circumstances and my emotions as just what they are. I actually relate to my interpretation of my circumstances and my emotions. So in my world this morning, left unchecked, I'll go and be in action about me being a failure, as opposed to just being in action, doing what I need to do. And in our conversation yesterday, Giovanni and I created, so how do we disrupt our already always relationship to my interpretations of my emotions and my circumstances? There's a real easy way to disrupt that. And Giovanni, share that with us.
Yeah, and let's back up a little bit, Saurel, because you went right through it, but I wasn't quite relating yet, right? Let's back up a little bit and let's get some relationship to what you're pointing to. When we talk about emotions, right? It's like wherever you have a complaint, like Saurel was pointing to, wherever you have a complaint, there is an emotion attached to that complaint. So Saurel was pointing to, I have a complaint about all the things I have to do. I don't have enough time, right? And you could see in your life where you have a complaint. You have a complaint about time. You have a complaint about people. You have a complaint about your coworkers. You have a complaint about the Daily Huddle. You have a complaint about your health and wellness. You have a complaint about your body. You have a complaint about your parents. You have a complaint about your significant other, right? Put in the chat, what do you complain about, right? Just put it in the chat. If you're on Facebook, put it in the chat. What do you complain about? And don't say you don't complain, because then you're lying. And then this conversation is useless.
Two would be a complaint. I don't have enough complaints.
So wherever you have a complaint in your life, there is an emotional attachment to that complaint. You could see it, right? You're driving and somebody cuts you off, and then you're like, this person. At that moment, you had a complaint, and at that moment, there was an emotional attachment to that complaint. Now, what makes this conversation juicy, like Saurel is pointing to, is that you notice that what are those things you have a complaint about, right? You notice that. I notice there's an emotion right there. And for the most part, it's going to be a negative emotion, right? There's a statistic out there that we use, right? That human beings have about 60,000 thoughts a day. And about 70% of them are negative thoughts. Negative thoughts impact you negatively in some way. And they're all attached to a negative emotion. So that's why you're constantly tired. That's why you're stressed. That's why all of those things that most human beings feel, right? So they're impacting your business. They're impacting your life. And now Saurel is pointing to something. Well, if it's always happening, and it's never not going to happen, how do you interrupt it? How do we interrupt it? Right? How do you interrupt that? You're doing it all the time. I'm doing it all the time.
And interrupting it, Giovanni, is the access to overcoming the emotions. Because what we're both pointing to is this, right? In the swirl of all the emotions, my actions become about soothing myself so I don't feel the emotions. Like, especially if it's an emotion I don't like. I'm angry, or I'm frustrated. I will go right to work to soothe myself so that emotion gets to be something that's more favorable to me, something that I like. I want to be happy. I don't want to be frustrated anymore, right? And if it's an emotion that I like, well, I keep doing whatever it is I'm doing that's generating that emotion because I'm connecting the two.
Yeah. And you know something, Saurel, as you're pointing to? I find, now I'm going to speak for myself, right? I find that sometimes I stay upset pretending that I don't like to be upset. Like there is this juice that human beings get, that I get to stay upset. You know, when I'm upset, then you get to walk on eggshells, then my children get to walk on eggshells, my significant other gets to it, and then I pretend I don't like it. You
And
know?
that's emotional investment.
Yeah.
Emotional investment is, like you could call it your commitment, my commitment to being right about whatever it is we're complaining about while pretending that we actually want to resolve the complaint.
Yeah.
So literally, there is an emotional investment over here to being busy and not having a lot of time. I mean, I look pretty darn important. Man, you go on my calendar, you try to find a 30-minute time slot, good luck. So I'm emotionally invested. While I'm complaining that I'm busy, I'm emotionally invested to having the frustration there as a reminder that for myself, I am that important. I am that busy. And it's a vicious cycle. So to interrupt that vicious cycle requires actually being present that that's happening. And there's an easy way to do that. Now, all of you have commitments, right? I have commitments. And
A real quick question. Would you like Molly to say something now? She wants to say something now, or you want to wait?
let's have Molly say something. Molly, you have a question? I missed that.
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
If you're anything like me, Saurel, you have no reason to complain about not having enough time in the day because you work so hard and not being able to have enough time. Therefore, you don't have a right to complain. You make it so you're always busy and you try to add on things. And so you have no right.
You're absolutely right. I have no rights. Unfortunately, given that I am a human being, that's just what I do. And given that I'm a human being, just what I do is also being emotionally invested in the complaint. And being a human being, just what I do is interpret the frustration and the fear into something that I make the truth about me and about my life, and I make it real. I say, oh my God, I am failing. And now all of my energy gets spent and sucked into fixing me, fixing my life to avoid the failure. Now, how do we disrupt that? We first start by acknowledging that that's what's happening. That comes with the package of being a human being. And Giovanni and I looked at it yesterday and we said, well, guess what? When I'm in that soup, what gets lost is what I'm really committed to. Like, I'm really committed to making a big difference for the people who my business, who get to interact with my business and whom I served. I'm really committed to that. And so in those moments when I'm complaining, Giovanni, I'll point to it and then I'd love for you to run with it, right? There is this practice of picking up the piece of paper on which I literally wrote down what I'm committed to. And then I get to remind myself of the emotional investment that had me write that commitment. And in that moment, there's a small window that opens where I can deliberately disrupt my own investment to the emotions that are impacting the business negatively, to now flip over and reinvest myself in my commitments. Gio.
Yes. So when what you were sharing, Saurel, what gave me access to, and for all of us to consider, right, is that whenever I have a complaint and I'm invested in that complaint for whatever reason, it's impacting my life and those around me, I lose sight of what I'm committed to, of what actually fulfills my life, or what actually I want to move forward, right? What actually the dots I want to connect. I lose sight of that. So were you pointing to this, Saurel, that it is critical that I create a practice to write down what I am actually committed to? Another way of saying it is critical that you allow yourself to have those goals that you want for yourself in terms of what you want to achieve and the goal of your self-expression, of your being. Who do you want to become, or who you're working to becoming? So that, for example, say, I want to be free to say what I think without the fear of what other people think of me. Say, for example, that's a goal I have, a commitment I have. So you're saying if I write them down and I can presence them constantly, it interrupts my usual way of dealing with life during the day. Is that what we're pointing to here?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're pointing to. The other thing to note is this: when I write down for myself, I am that everyone gets to be the leader they most respect in life. When I first conjured that up, there was an emotional investment there too. So what we want to point to is, Molly, you pointed to it earlier. You said, well, I have no right to complain. Well, it comes with the package. I'm a human being. I complain. By the same token, when I create something that inspires me, it also comes with the package that there is an emotional investment there. And it is that emotional investment that, looking at your goal, looking at your commitment, gives you the opportunity to trigger. It's like, oh my God, I am that everyone on the planet gets access to being the leader they most respect. And I am inspired by that. And in that moment of looking at that this morning, I had the opportunity to slide myself through that narrow window where my investment in my commitment, my emotional investment in my commitment, disrupted my emotional investment in the complaint. Does that make sense, Gio?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I want to hear from Ronbert from ATLT2 Ronbert.
That's Ronald.
Yeah, this is Ronald.
Go ahead, Ronald.
This is Ronald. Yeah, I need to change my name in there. But I figured I need to really put a 2 cents in there, and it'll be quick. What I got from the discussion of negative emotion is that we are, for the most part, have a cultural and social, I mean, like a social emotion in our way of living. Like if we are too idle, if we are not doing anything, it's not normal. Therefore, we always in the seeking for a high point, or we quest for excellence. Whereas sometimes the downtime is really what we need. So to respond to the negative emotion, I think the whole idea is to learn to accept downtime, because we don't have that in our culture. We're going away from accepting downtime. We're looking out forward to our downtime when we have the 2 week vacation or that week vacation that we always schedule. But before that 2 weeks, we burn ourselves out. So taking downtime in a day will help change that negative emotion. That's my 2 cents.
Ronald, I love your 2 cents. And, uh, you know, the other thing that comes with the emotional investment I have in my complaint is my innate, and it's like automatic. Like I want to do something to soothe myself so that the edge of the emotion I'm feeling goes away. So taking downtime, sleeping, drinking, smoking, taking a run, doing whatever I need to do so that physically I soothe myself is one way to deal with it. But that way of dealing with it is still in the realm of my own investment to the complaint. So I'm not doing anything about the complaint. I'm not disrupting anything. I'm just soothing myself. So I'm inviting you to consider there's a difference between soothing myself and soothing the situation so that the edge of the emotion, the negative emotion I'm feeling, goes away, so that at some point in time later, I may do better, only to get right back to the complaint without the power of disrupting it now. So there is access to the power of disrupting it now. And what Giovanni and I are suggesting is that to disrupt my own investment to the complaint I have right now, it only takes presencing for myself right now the emotional investment I have to my commitments and my commitments. So instead of taking downtime, how much downtime do you need, brother?
I don't
A
know.
day?
I mean,
10 minutes, whatever it is, right? Instead of doing
yeah.
that, you could actually, having written down what you really committed to, you could pull it up. And then in the same way you're emotionally invested in the complaint, you'll get that you are emotionally invested in what you're really committed to. And let that be what runs the show right now, not sometime later. Because see, when Giovanni says, "What time is it?" and Mark Ham pulls out his Rolex and says, "Now," the time to disrupt my emotional investment to the negative emotions impacting my business is actually now. And what gives me access to that now is my own emotional investment to my commitments. And there's an easy way to connect to that. There's an easy way to presence that. And it is to read and state and reconnect for yourself with what you're committed to. I am that everyone in the world gets access to being the leader they most respect. And man, every time I say that, the world gets disrupted for me. So in that space, Molly, it's not that I don't have the right to complain. Something else supersedes my complaint and that emotional investment. Jill.
Saurel, there is Molly to say something, and Pamela had her hand up.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Pamela, and then we go with you, Molly. And then we wrap it up.
Okay, I love this conversation. My question is this: does this process disrupt the victim mentality that that I and many others can attach ourselves to? Whether you're a minority, whether you're divorced, whether you're poor. I mean, there are many circumstances that that I can define myself as being a victim. And so I interpret what you're saying. One is that this is a process to disrupt the victim mentality. Like, oh, this is something external that is happening to me that is unfair. And if in fact that is, then I can see some tremendous application for this. And there's some things that it's going to be very hard for me to take a look at. But so that's my first question. Does this process disrupt the victim mentality that I may have? I'll speak for myself, like being a divorced person and a single parent. Like, is that what we're saying?
Yeah. There is an emotion. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for bringing that up and making it so real. I love when we make it real. There is an emotion attached to what I am saying that creates me as a victim. There is an emotion attached to when I say something that creates me as a victim. And you're pointing to something very powerful, and I wish we could expand this in another half an hour.
I know.
Right? It's very important for someone who's committed to making a difference to others and making a difference to oneself. It's very important to recognize when I say something that creates me a victim. It's very important. Like, I'm a Hispanic man, I'm an immigrant. There are things I can say that create me as a victim. And that has an emotional attachment. And that emotion can disempower me. It can leave me without tools. It can leave me without resources. So that's very powerful what you're pointing to. And so what Saurel is inviting us to look is that, okay, so I have emotions, never mind whether they're victim or not, blah, 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 but I have emotions that I'm constantly attached to. However, there is something I'm committed to. And I am committed to my children. I am committed to my self-expression. I am committed to start a new relationship. These are the things I'm committed to. And Saurel is pointing to, by representing my commitments and the emotions I have attached to my actual commitments, it interrupts the negative emotion. And to point to what you're saying, Pamela, it will interrupt the emotion that creates me as a victim. Very powerful. Now, I do want to say something, but I want to walk on eggshells about it. There are some people who are real victims. However, the majority of the time, this conversation about being a victim is to people who are actually not victims. They just create themselves that way. Right? But there are some people who are real victims, and we want to support them in getting themselves out of that conundrum. Thank you so much for that question, Pamela. That was so powerful. And then Molly, go ahead, Molly, and then we wrap it up.
Sorry, Saurel, I didn't mean to say you weren't human, but I'm just referring to this as how I feel. Like, I work really hard at being busy, just doing anything, and therefore I don't feel like I can complain. That's all I was saying.
I got it, Molly. I got it. And may I invite you to do something? Complain like crazy. Because guess what? You now have the tools to relate to your complaints just for what they are, what a human being does. And in the moment you catch yourself complaining without making that wrong and without trying not to complain, you have the opportunity to now presence that which you are committed to. So if you could say it for us as we close today's huddle, what is it you're committed to in the world?
I guess getting people not to drive distracted and not making the same mistakes that I have, because I don't want anyone to have to deal with what I've had to deal with.
And you have an emotional investment to that commitment, right?
Correct.
What, as you said what you were committed to, what was the emotion that was right there for you?
I'm not sure.
I know, but there's something you feel when you say that, right? Whether you can name it or not, imagine if every time you caught yourself complaining, you simply said, I'm committed to people not driving distracted, and never should any family have to go through what my family has gone through. And in that moment, you get to disrupt your emotional investment to the complaint. And you get to choose to take an action right here, right now, consistent with your commitment. And that's the whole, I mean, it sounds simple, and it is. And that's why Giovanni calls it a practice. So what time is it, Molly?
It's now.
It is now. And in every now, we have the opportunity and the power to disrupt the negative emotions that are impacting our business. Giovanni, take us home, brother.
Thank you, Saurel. Thank you so much, Molly, Pamela, Ronald, those of you who participated with us today, and those of you who are on Facebook. You guys have been so generous on Facebook, Wendell and Grace, and all of you who are just being on the edge, making notes, and we just profoundly appreciate that you are here with us. Now, this was a little snip, just a little conversation that is actually from the book of Turning, from the content, right? From the book of Turning Point, and which is tonight's conversation. So I want to just re-invite you real quick to consider joining us tonight at 6 p.m. for a conversation on how to gain emotional intelligence, how to have access to that leader within you that needs tools for emotional intelligence. So you're not a puppet of circumstances, if you will, of life itself sometimes. So for those of you who haven't registered, go ahead and register now. And if today doesn't work, then Saturday could be an option as well. But visit our link, turningpoint.expert, turningpoint.expert, and we will see you guys tonight. Anything else you want to add, Leo?
Oh, no, that's it. I just want to thank everyone for engaging in the conversation, and you for your partnership in dancing in it, Giovanni. I just love you, and I love all of you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. All right, Tyrone.
Bye-bye, everybody.